Welcome to part two of our class, in which we are going to talk about the power of vision and moving organizations forward, which involves change and growth and development. Vision is a very powerful force, and organizations without such a vision tend to languish and eventually pass away. If we consider the moving vision of Collis P. Huntington, the founder of the Newport News Shipbuilding and Dry Dock Company, we can see it's really relatively straightforward. We shall build good ships here, at a profit if we can, at a loss if we must, but always good ships. So that's a commitment to doing a certain activity, building ships of a very high quality. And so in 1891, the Newport News Shipbuilding delivered its first ship, a tugboat named Dorothy, and this shipbuilding company is still in existence today, based on the vision of its original founder. One of the things that we see in any organization that's changing is that there are several elements that are necessary in order for change to be effective. And although we're not going to get into managing change in detail, this is a very useful diagram, because if there's things going on in your organization that might be a little difficult for you to understand, this diagram can give you some insights in terms of what might be missing or what might not be adequate. Change in any organization requires 5 elements: a vision, skills, incentives, resources, and an action plan. An organization without a vision may have the skills and the incentives and the resources and an action plan, but there's confusion because nobody really knows. People think they know where they're going, but nobody really agrees on exactly what that might be. An organization without skills that still has a vision, they have incentives and resources and an action plan, there's anxiety because people are being asked to do things that they simply are not capable of doing. And so they are way out of their comfort zone, they're way out of their skill level. An organization with no incentives for change, we have vision, we have the skills necessary, we have the resources and an action plan. What happens is that we get gradual change. There's no reason, there's not enough energy behind the change. There's no reason for people to change or to move forward or to do things differently. There's just no incentives. So change is very gradual. When we don't have the resources for change, we may have the vision, the skills, the incentive, lots of energy, and an action plan. We're all set to go, but we don't have the resources. We don't have the money, the time, the information, or the right kind of people. And so we end up feeling frustrated. And finally, when we have the vision, we have skills, incentives, and resources, we're all ready to move forward to achieve the vision, but we don't have an action plan in terms of specific activities that we need to move forward, we get false starts. So take a look at your organization, or take a look at your experience, and see where you may have experienced these conditions: confusion, anxiety, gradual change, frustration, false starts, and take a look at what might have been missing. There are 3 leadership qualities that are needed for steering organizations through periods of change. One is that leaders must take personal responsibility for initiating the change. The second is creating a vision and a strategy for achieving that vision that the organization can follow. And third is trusting and supporting others. There are 7 key leadership findings about leading change, and these are really very important. We'll see these later on in the class when we look at the Cotter framework. The first is that without leadership, organizations falter. They stumble and they stop, and change and many times even goes backwards. Leadership is important from the boardroom to the shop floor. It's not just those folks in the executive office or the middle managers or the supervisors or the employees. It's really everyone. And everyone needs to be willing to take a leadership role depending on the specific situation. Third, positions and titles have little or no relationship to leadership performance. You'll see this to be true time and time again. Fourth, organizational leadership involves interdependence more than individualism. It's really about being part of a particular group or part of a team and helping that team to move forward. Fifth, leaders are inspirational. They inspire others to take on the tasks of leadership. And sixth, management skills are an essential component of organizational success. Finally, leadership is contextual. The style, the approach, the particular behaviors are all going to be based on the contexts that you're faced with. The visioning process is kind of interesting. If you've never gone through this, this can be a great exercise. It really requires initiation and constant vigilance by leaders. And a vision should be challenging, but it has to be at the same time realistic. And the way to do this is to get early involvement by other members of the organization. Visions should be sent out for a widespread review and comment to make sure that they're aligned with the current value set in the organization. And as this review and comment is going on, it's important to keep communications flowing. It's also important to allow enough time for the visioning process to work, to get something that's doable, achievable, and inspirational for all. And then the vision, once established, there has to be commitment, follow through, and concurrent action by leaders to make this vision a reality. Finally, the subunits of any organization, if you work for a large one, they have to be maintained in harmony so that everyone's working together. The visioning really needs to reflect a central purpose or mission, the reason for existence, why does the organization exist, and it could include some broad goals. There could be some core values that could be used as ethical criteria for rightness and wrongness of behaviors and decisions. It would include the human element so that you know how to relate to people. It can be based on an analysis of organizational strengths and weaknesses, as well as environmental opportunities and threats. This is what we know as a SWOT analysis. We'll talk about this very briefly. It can reflect some strategic initiatives where the organization wants to be, and generally does not include tactical plans, although tactical plans and strategic initiatives and specific assignments all support the achievement of the vision. A SWOT analysis is a useful way to look at something. It's just a way of thinking about a particular situation. In fact, you can use this in your personal life. You can do a SWOT analysis of yourself. You can do it of your team. You can do it of any kind of decision that you might want to make. You can say, okay, internally, what are our strengths? What am I good at? From an organization, what are we good at as a whole? We can look at what are our weaknesses. Where do we really fall down, or where don't we have the skills necessary? And then when we look at the external fit, we can say, what are the opportunities out there? What are some things we can take advantage of? And then what are the threats to taking advantage of the opportunities? Or in other words, who's standing in our way of going where we want to go? So the application when we within the organization is very important, just as important as forming it. It's important that all leaders honor and live the vision as the organization's constitution. It's the core reason for existence. There needs to be a socialization process where we encourage new members to understand and commit to the vision through an early introduction. Make it constantly visible, and this should be visible through leaders modeling specific behaviors and through policies and strategies, as well as through alignment and congruency. This is what another leader task is, to create integrity in the organization through alignment and congruency of all the elements. It's important to review the vision periodically and revise as appropriate to reflect changing conditions. However, this is a long-term vision and it shouldn't change that much. However, it also, again, needs to reflect changing conditions, so it's really a judgment call on the part. An effective vision has to be developed by leaders, those people who have the strength and influence to establish a direction and mobilize the organization. It really needs to be communicated to followers and also be supported by them. It also should be comprehensive and detailed so that every member of the organization can understand their part. It doesn't really have to be complex or involved. It just has to have enough detail and comprehensive enough so that everyone knows how they're contributing to it. And finally, it must be uplifting and inspiring. It has to be something that people really are motivated to achieve. The different styles of leadership can affect how a vision is achieved. When we looked at last week some of the University of Michigan models, concern for production, concern for relationships, we saw one of them was exploitive leadership, which was essentially impoverished leadership. It's autocratic, hierarchical, very low participation by members. Leaders show little trust in others and often have a lack of loyalty from their employees. Another form is similar to the impoverished leadership, where power remains at the top. There are very rare opportunities for members to participate, and this is very true in an autocracy, where essentially it's one person or several people running a dictatorship. Supportive leadership is where power still resides in the leaders, but they take a great deal of interest and confidence in the members, and so they focus on gaining widespread commitment to achieve goals and getting people to participate in decision-making activities. Enlightened leadership is really the goal of this class and the goal of every organization. Enlightened leadership is where all levels of an organization can initiate and execute plans. Leadership can emerge at any level at any time. Power is delegated to where it needs to be in order to resolve problems. This is really key. And this requires open and uncensored communication, as well as leaders asking for ideas and using others' suggestions and giving feedback, as well as something called feed forward. And enlightened organizations, we'll see that they are run by four basic principles. And if this is not true of your organization, let's see what you can do as a leader to make this happen. First of all, enlightened organizations view human resources as the organization's greatest asset. The organization is a society of humans first. Second, and within this society, every individual is treated with understanding, dignity, warmth, and support. Third, groups that are formed and teams that are formed are used in constructive ways through involvement in visioning exercises and team building. And fourth, high performance goals are set at every level, and these goals are generally set with high involvement of those who are responsible for achieving them, so there's lots of motivation and buy-in. Within an enlightened organization, we're going to see something emerge called community. And there are 10 elements of a true community that we would see present in any enlightened organization. There's a shared vision. There's a wholeness that incorporates diversity, so tolerance is implicit. There's a shared culture. There's a set of shared values as to what's important and how decisions are made. There are internal communications to a high degree. There's lots of consideration for others and trust in others. There's also maintenance and government, so the organization is constantly renewing itself and maintaining control to the degree necessary. There's a high degree of participation and shared leadership by everyone in the organization. There's also a focus on succession and development of younger members. There's affirmation of what's important, affirmation of the shared vision, as well as the abilities of those involved in the community. And finally, there are strong links with outside groups as a source of new ideas and new energy. The organizational culture is very important because the organizational culture can either impede or support progress. As Eric Fromm says, sick societies and workplaces can make people sick. You can actually get physically sick from a sick culture. And I have worked at one of these organizations, and perhaps you have. These organizations tend to survive despite the sick culture. However, eventually they're not going to make it because it just will become too obvious that it's not a great place to work, and the attrition rate will become too high. Within teams, there are certain roles that you can take, and these are actually leadership roles that you can take to enhance a group's success. So if you want to be a leader in a team, there are many ways to do it. We're going to talk about a few here. The first role is the encourager. This is where you encourage people. You're friendly, you're diplomatic, responsive to others. Your goal here is to encourage people, make them feel good about being in the group, and help them and encourage them to make contributions. Another leadership role is clarifier. Here's where you restate problems and solutions, summarize points, you bring new members up to speed, you make sure that everyone understands exactly what's going on. Another leadership role within teams is a harmonizer, and this is where you seek to bring together opposite points of view, and you're really not aggressive towards others. You really are very inclusive, and you're a team player. You work with all the members of the team to make sure that everything fits. Another positive team member role for leaders is an idea generator, where you're spontaneous and creative. You're really unafraid of change, and you're suggesting new ideas. One of the most powerful roles in any team is the ignition key. Without the ignition key, nothing really happens. And this is where you provide the spark or the energy for group action. You cause the group to meet and work and follow through with ideas. And this is traditionally what's been known as a leadership role, although it's been carried out by the project manager. But this can be adopted by anyone. And it's about managing energy, not necessarily managing the structure or the project plan. You can also be a detail specialist, because people can go so fast and get so much energy going that you overlook the details. So you can consider the facts and implication of a problem and look at small points that often have significant consequences. As teams get going and you get the energy flowing and people are really working together, it's sometimes easy to overlook small details that are very significant. And so this is another leadership role that's important. The standard setter is another key area, because it provides the group with ideals and values and goals that are a source of pride. Often an expert in a particular technical area, the standard setter will provide standards for both group process and group outcomes, and be very uncompromising and tell people we're not meeting the standard here, and in order to be effective, we really do. But then again, not blaming, just offering an area of assessment and fostering group pride. However, there are some areas that you have to be careful of, because you're going to see these folks in teams. These are negative behaviors, and if team members are not taken aside and these behaviors are not addressed, the team performance can really suffer. The first team member role that reduces group success is an ego tripper. This is the opposite of leadership. It interrupts others, overly dogmatic, demands attention, launches into long monologues, and manipulates the group to feel important. With these folks, you have to be very careful. You have to make them feel valuable, but at the same time not allow them to dominate in the team area. You might want to also take them aside and talk to them about shifting into one of the more positive team roles. Another team member role that reduces group success is the negative artist, what we call the negaholics. Rejecting all ideas, a negative attitude, argues without necessity, refuses to cooperate, pessimistic. These folks really need to be addressed head on, and if they're not willing to change their behaviors, they really need to exit the team and maybe even exit the organization. They can poison a positive team culture. A very common one is the above it all, folks who's not really present. They're indifferent, sort of a daydreamer. They're excessively formal. They're not emotionally engaged. They're kind of distracted. And they don't really care. The job here is to get them involved emotionally and to get them involved in the standard setting process for the group. A dream team, the best you can possibly hope for. A dream team works towards a common goal. They're committed to continuous improvement in methods and processes and relationships. And they maintain a positive attitude towards everyone's ideas. At the same time, they're staying on task, sharing pride in the team accomplishments, and celebrating success. So that's it for this presentation. If you have questions, please ask them in the Q&A thread. We'll see you in the class shell.